But appreciate it, man. Thank you. So I guess I should like try to get professional and kind of start like introducing my guests or something, and probably
Sure.
come up with a
Yeah.
name for this too. I don't really have a good name right now. I'm thinking maybe I don't know. But I should probably use my handle on YouTube, Flow State Fitness, somehow. But right now, it's been doing this one-on-one series. So I have my guest, Matt Kinney, big FRC practitioner, pretty big trainer in the FRC world. Thanks for joining me, man. You're actually gonna make me look good. You're the first like non-fucking giant bodybuilder, or I had Sergio on here. He's like 300 pounds. I had Robin, another IBB pro, 270. John Quint, 250. John's just giants. I'm like, okay, now I can get my angles on a little bit. So
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, yeah. I'll make you look good today. How about that?
awesome, appreciate it.
Well,
So
well, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to talk. When you reached out, I was excited. I respect you as a trainer a ton and all the information you share. So for you to, want to bring me on and talk with me was exciting. So thank you for the opportunity.
yeah, appreciate it. I mean, you're just so into the FRC world. You really are on top of it. You know all the nuances of it, and you also, have some done really cool things on the professional side that I don't want to get into. So I'm assuming like a lot of the people watching this will have some background on FRC, so we don't have to like dive in like and explain the whole thing too much, but maybe just give a little background about yourself real quick and what got you started with your fitness journey and how that led to FRC, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. So I grew up playing sports. I was super active, mainly skateboarding, snowboarding, and baseball. Snowboarding was by and far the thing I was the best at and had the most traction. And so I kind of ran with that. I had my first sponsor at 9 years old.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and was like full fledged by 11, Burton, Oakley, Red Bull. And
Oh,
so
that's
that was my,
awesome.
that was my path in life. That was what I had put all my eggs into the basket through my teenage years. And unfortunately couldn't stay healthy. I tore my ACL for the first time at 12 and then again at 15, 17, 21.
Oh my
Uh,
goodness. This is
yeah,
all snowboarding?
all snowboarding. Yep, all snowboarding,
Oh,
all the same knee as well. And so I spent my childhood in physical therapy offices, and that was my introduction to fitness and health. And Lyle at Biosports in Wenatchee was my personal or physical therapist, and he had such a positive impact on my life that ultimately I wanted to be able to provide that for other people.
yeah. Man, four surgeries. What did you do for those surgeries? Did you do like four different types? Did you do the same one each time? What do you have in there? You got some cadavers or what are you doing?
Yeah, I mean a little bit of everything. I started off at 12 with the cadaver, which at the time I believe had an over 60% re-rupture rate, which maybe wasn't the best decision at the
But you're
time, but
young, so they like it when you're
exactly.
younger though. But yeah, I get it. Yeah. It's good if
And
it
then
takes though. I mean, it's great usually.
yeah, well, and they don't have to harvest and I'm still
Yeah.
growing, so take less would be better. And then I've had patella tendons on from both knees, so I did same patella bone, which is like the gold standard. Then I did the other knee, and then I did a hamstring graft.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, it's kind of almost backwards. I usually see it kind of ending with the cadavers, almost starting with the patella or the hamstring. Usually people start with that. So do you still have any like limitations because of that?
I currently don't have an ACL. So there is some limitations. I don't snowboard
Can
anymore,
you? Oh, I was about to
unfortunately.
say you can't
I,
snowboard
yeah,
anymore.
all the strength stuff is great. It's just the feet being attached limits the pivot
Yeah.
points and the movement availability. And so the
Yeah,
force
you
kind
got no
of
space no more,
transitions.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, it transitions straight up into the knee. And so yeah, I gave that up, but I can still skateboard, I run, I mountain bike, I rock climb, I can do all of the other things I love besides snowboarding, and that's okay with me.
Yeah, he's super. Where did you go normally when you would snowboard?
I grew up riding at Stevens Pass and Mission Ridge, both in Washington State.
Nice, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before you got into like the FRC stuff, like when did you get introduced to FRC? How did that happen?
Yeah. So I'd been training for about 2 years. So I started personal training at 20. I ran in Orange
Where
Theory
was
for
that
two
at? Okay.
years. Yep,
Okay.
yep.
Cool.
In Seattle. Yeah. So and that was awesome. I'll get to the FRC, but that was awesome. Really learning. I think group training is where everybody should start. Learning how to command a room, or one of the first options. Learn how to command a room, control the energy, give quick cues. Right. You can't give anyone too much time in a class where there's 20 to 40 people. which has its downfalls for sure, but it made me an effective coach and efficient at giving cues, which translated into the personal training side of things really well. And
Now, real quick, with Orange Theory, are you
yeah.
doing programming yourself with that, or they like provide you when you were doing
Yep. Yeah, they still provide. So
it? Okay.
it's printed out every day,
Okay. Just
and
curious. Yeah.
it's printed out every day. Really, you're just there to follow out the training program. I think they even now do the music. So you're just there as
Yeah.
like an eye. So and I originally started personal training because people kept getting hurt in class, running injuries, primarily
Yeah.
overuse, ramping up too quickly. And I started taking on one-on-one clients like that and really loved that and enjoyed the personal aspect of it. And so I moved to Salt Lake from Seattle, wanting to open my own gym. Initially, that was the idea. It was 3 months before COVID.
What age is okay? Okay, right before COVID. So
Yes, yeah.
how
So
old? You just
I
turned 27 or something, right? You're young, aren't
yeah,
you?
28. Yeah, just turned
28.
28.
Okay.
So I was 22 when I moved. So I did that for 2 years, and then not long after being in Salt Lake, COVID hit. Salt Lake didn't shut down too much. So I was out at a coffee shop and I ran into a fellow coach. I heard him talking to the phone on somebody, and I kind of tapped him on the shoulder and I said, "Hey, man, I hear you talking, and I like the language you're using about coaching. What's your deal?" His name's Ben Van Treese, and he's out of Park City. He runs kinstretch classes, and he said, "I have these kinstretch classes. You should come take one." I'd never heard of it, and I said, "Yeah, like for sure. Let's do it." I showed up to the class. I took the class, and after that hour, my mind was blown. I'd never understood training that well and through that lens. And I took that class, and it hit me like a brick wall. And I signed up for FRC certification the next
It's,
day.
it's interesting. So that was your first introduction was actually through kinstretch.
Yeah.
Can you describe kinstretch a little bit, just for anyone who's like not familiar?
Yeah, of course. It's a movement enhancement system designed to increase flexibility and usable range of motion. So it is essentially taking FRC principles and applying it to a group setting. So
Yeah.
it's joint mobility classes that's scalable for everyone.
Yeah, like what I say when I say to people that have like no like reference for what FRC at all is, basically say it's like what yoga should be, kind of. It's like like a strength base where you're actually using things in their length and range. It connects you to your body in a totally different way. And yeah, I think it's awesome. I think it's super good with recovery. I used to offer it at my gym, complimentary for all my members, and just for them to come in on Saturdays and move in a different way, because we're always doing a lot of compressive forces, working pretty hard, and so they kind of come in. It's a totally different atmosphere, and it's so fun. It's so challenging if you make it challenging. That's the thing, right? You have to really make sure that you don't let yourself cheat on any of that at all.
I think that's one of the biggest hurdles with online kinstretch platforms. So I run an online kinstretch platform, and I think it's the best way to offer online FRC training because they get to follow along live with you and they're hearing those cues and coaching, but still it's easy not to push yourself that extra 20% that we really need to make the progress.
Yeah, it's a skill too. Obviously you
It
get
is.
better at learning how to direct that tension and keep it, more local if you want it more local, and all that good stuff. And so
Yeah,
you also have done the ISM. That's where we met originally in
correct.
Pittsburgh. So first thing you did just FRC, the
Correct.
intro. You have to do that first, right? Can you do
Yeah.
kinstretch first? Okay.
No.
So you did. So you did the FRC, and then you went right into what after that?
Yeah, I went into kinstretch and then FRA, which is functional range assessment, and into the ISM.
So
So
that
that
was
was
all like within what, 2 years or so? That's pretty
yeah,
quick, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, pretty quick. I just wanted more. I
Yeah.
was seeing how much it was working for me and my clients, but I still was grasping for a full understanding of how and when to apply it. And we've kind of talked about that off mic, where knowing where and when to use which inputs and when is a passive range hold better than a pails and rails effort, and trying to make those decisions and navigating the system. I just wanted more because it was
Yeah.
working and fun and I loved it. And so that was I just kind of ran down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, I feel like ISM was so essential to just tie it all together, and actually like how to like program it. And I love that it's not trying to solve every single problem there is or give you like a structure, like this is how it's supposed to be, because obviously we all have different goals, different starting points. And I guess it can be maybe challenging for certain trainers that are like newer and just learning their way about it, because sometimes you do need kind of more of like a structured this step, this step, this step, this amount of volume. But it's really made to tailor to every individual situation once you have the concept. So it's something you definitely get more skilled at the more you do it and the more you practice on yourself. And I'm assuming you pretty much follow the ISM model yourself currently, or what?
Yeah, primarily I will do so I follow I do a 2 week muscle focused inputs, 2 week more connective tissue focused inputs. I don't have any specific goals. I'm pretty happy with where I'm at, how my body feels, and so it's more of just an exploration and a maintenance thing. I'm still pushing more weight. I just hit a new bench press for me, 255.
Oh,
Probably
nice.
probably not big for
No,
your
that's
crowd,
awesome.
but
What do you weigh?
that
What do
was
you weigh
big
right
for
now?
me. I weigh about 190. I'm 5'7".
Yeah, no, that's good. And then where were you squatting? I saw you squatting pretty good amount. It was at least three plates, like good. Like
Yeah,
obviously, like
335 to 355 for five. I don't really
yeah,
squat less volume than that.
yeah,
I never squat with a spotter really. I kind of work out
yeah.
alone, and so what I can comfortably manage is where I'll stay.
So when you're doing the 2 weeks, kind of more like muscle focused, are you
Yep.
still following the ISM model, just more external load, or are you kind of like keeping some of the concepts but doing more traditional stuff during that period? How does that work?
Yeah. So I think first off, realizing that I pretty much view all movement from a FRS lens. So maybe I program 2 sets of 12 and the intention is going slow. I'm thinking, okay, that's input 5, slow twitch muscle fiber, not to failure. So even if I'm going to use a rep based input, in my head, I'm still categorizing using the ISM model. So I
Yeah.
still consider it an ISM model. I might do slightly more volume than some of the ISM programs out there. Just I love volume. I like the feeling of it on my body. I like the little bit of added stress,
Oh, and you
even if
also
it's
got a
not
really
the
good
most
level
efficient.
of current mobility too, right? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that's how I facilitate it. But every one of my sessions, regardless of the week, I'll start cars, tails and rails of the joints I'm trying to expand still, and then positional isometrics of the joints that I'm going to load, but just working on, maintaining range and increasing load capacity essentially. So like my hip internal and external rotation, I'm pretty happy with where they're at, but I'll still get into position, fidget around a bit and
Yeah.
crank on them. Knowing I'm going to squat for the day, of course, I want my nervous system tuned in and well aware of what my joint capacity is for the day and how I'm feeling.
Yeah, exactly. No, and like what is, I mean, I'm assuming you're pretty active, so you live life too. I'm assuming you're not like me, like everything's gym. You do real stuff too, so you actually need your joints and things. But like what are you typically getting in? Do you have like a set split or number of days you're actually in the gym on those 2 weeks
Yeah.
where it's more muscle focused?
Yeah,
What
yeah, all the time. I do 4 sessions per week. So I do an upper lower split. So I'll do, kind of like quads and adductor tissue focus. That's going to look like more squats, Copenhagen planks, lateral lunges, that type of thing. And then I'll do like a hinge and glute hamstring calf focus, more of a posterior chain leg day. And then a similar, so kind of like a bro split, similar on the upper body as well, like a push pull maintenance, but I'll do like an overhead pull and a horizontal push, and then vice versa.
nice. And then on your connect, so it's just like 2 weeks on, 2 weeks onto the other one, like all year or pretty much. Okay, so
Yeah.
what does your connective tissue input look like? Are you just really maybe hitting one or two external moves on those days, and the rest is all
Yep. Yeah. So like for a leg day, I'll still go maybe like a heavy 5 rep back squat, just because I love it. But that will look like hip flexion, dynamic EQIs to failure. That will look like I categorize my continuous tension work more on the connective tissue side. Even if I'll do some pulsing, I'm always thinking about taking the tissue from short to long position. So maybe it kind of verges into the muscle loading. It
so when you're
definitely
saying you're
does.
doing so every rep you're hitting length on the continuous tension, you mean?
So like for an example, if I do a continuous tension deadlift, rather than pulsing through full reps up and down, I'm going to start at the top of my hinge, scan
Okay,
through,
yeah.
and finish at length. So maybe I get some pulsing and muscle contraction in there. I definitely do, but the primary loading focus is going to be more on the absorption quality of the connective tissue.
How are you gonna? So how do you scan through on the deadlift when you're doing that? What are you moving? What are you looking like?
Yeah, so I'm gonna go much. I did them today, so I'm gonna go much lighter. I did them with 110 pounds, which I could deadlift 450.
Yep.
So not high load, but I'm looking at. I'll shift my torso from side to side. I might do some lateral spine flexion. I might go through flexion and extension of the spine, and then pelvic shifting as well. I'll push the hips back and forward in space to get different lines of tension through the hamstrings. Essentially, I'm trying to come in and clean up all the dusty corners. I'm like, yeah, I'm super strong if I set up perfectly on the bar and rip one, but if I get 10 degrees off to the left, not near as strong,
Yeah.
and that tissue load bearing capacity goes way down, and it's kind of scary. Or like you see it and you're like, whoa, a lot of opportunity for growth here.
Yeah, that's why I asked you, because I don't think a lot of people understand what that means when you say like I'm scanning. Like people probably, if you're in a normal gym, people probably look at you like what is happening right here. I get that all the time, and luckily, like if I'm pretty pumped, they're like, okay, this guy must at least he knows something. Like what the hell is going on here? But you definitely get some weird looks. I do like a lot of the continuous tension on the leg extension. I think I've seen you do that too, right? Where you're like squirming all around. So I was like, what is going on? And also you touched on like the reps too. It's like for me personally, like I'll do like you. I'll get like a 5 rep, something heavy, but then like I really don't count reps either. Like after that at all, like for the rest of my workout, which some people on more of the bodybuilding side, they'd be like, that's terrible. You got a progressive overload, but it's like push myself pretty close to failure every time. But it's like with my clients, they'll kind of be like, how many am I doing? I thought you said I was going to do like 15. I'm like, well, you sped through these. I'm actually just looking at the time. So just go. I'm gonna just give you somewhat of a reference. I'm sorry. I know. So it can be a little hard for them sometimes, but they're used to it now.
Yeah,
um,
I'm curious. I'm curious for you, like being a bodybuilding professional and most of your training focused towards that. Is it catching on in the bodybuilding community? Because I would imagine the idea of having access to more trainable tissue would be highly desirable when you're talking about a physique perspective. So I'm curious, is it catching on? Do you feel like it's a superior way to train? Kind of
I
dive
would
into that.
say if it is catching on, it's more as a recovery and injury prevention kind of thing versus the way it can actually help with potentially like muscle separation and hypertrophy. I think like John Quint is the one that got me into it, and I heard him years ago on like a bodybuilding podcast talking about working with some of these really elite level pro bodybuilders, and so I mean that's what got me into it, and I think like had he followed that path, which understandably why you wouldn't do that. There's way more money with professional sports teams than with poor bodybuilders. But yeah, my goal is to kind of do that and kind of bring it in a little bit because there are a lot of benefits that go beyond just, okay, I don't have a tweaky shoulder all the time, but that goes beyond that, right? Like now I can, like you said, you have access to more tissues, but you can push yourself because you can handle force so much better. You can really like hit failure instead of having to like, oh, if I push myself any harder, something's going to go a little haywire. So yeah, that is my goal to try to bring it a little bit more mainstream. But I mean, you also got to make it simple for bodybuilders too. So it's like what I tell them, so if I have someone who's real stiff, usually the first thing I tell them is just try to restore some relative motion by maybe like alternating. Don't just do everything bilateral. Get out of a bilateral, do a split stance, do lunges, do alternating presses. Okay, you're doing that. Okay, maybe let's add a little bit of direct capsular tissue work. You're doing something on your own. You're doing some bullshit for 10 minutes, some stretching that you don't need to do. If we don't have to change any kind of like volume, you just substitute like 20% for alternating. You take 5 minutes out of that, 10 minutes where you're just wasting time, do a little direct absolute tissue work. They start feeling the benefits, and I think it'll come around. It has reached a lot more in the powerlifting world because they get the benefits of the PAP, the post activation potentiation, and they actually, like something like the ISM model is a little bit more. And I went over this with John, right? It's a little bit more geared towards like a specific output, right? So like in powerlifting, you can use it to get those 3 lifts up versus where in bodybuilding, we're trying to get like a biological adaptation. So it's a totally different thing. I guess, talking right now, we should probably, even though I went over with John and some people might know, we should maybe step back for just a second and explain the ISID model a little bit real quick. So I'll let you kind of explain it in your words, how you view it, just short and simple, but.
Sure. Are you looking for a explanation of the overall system or the individual inputs? Like what are you
Maybe not
what are
the
you
input, just
thinking?
the system. Yeah. the
Cool.
purpose of it and what makes it a little different, maybe. And we can dive in deeper
Yeah.
later. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I might not explain it perfectly, so forgive me if I veer off, but my interpretation and experience with it was a way to take someone from point A to point B. Point A being where they are and point B where they want to be. And it's the only training system I've taken and learned through that gives a clear process. They could be anywhere on that spectrum and we can get them to that point B. Now I'm sure there's other training styles that have clear guidelines or thoughts. And the cool thing about the ISM model is not telling you how to think. They're not telling you how to do the training in terms of like you have to do it like this. They're saying for these issues, here are some solutions. And when you solve this solution, it opens this problem, and you keep kind of going down that path. So I think that it is the best way that I know to look through a training and rehab lens.
Yeah,
I
I
don't know
love
if
the
that sums it
example.
up well, but
No, exactly. And I asked John. Obviously, John knows because he invented it. But I like
yeah,
getting different perspectives on it from everyone who's kind
yeah,
of in our field. Um, Yeah, I mean, exactly. Like we're every system, right, is just a display of external, like what can I do externally? Can I lift weights over my head? Okay. Where the internal strength model, takes in account like our internal capabilities and it works on, increasing your connective tissue, your joint capacity, making sure that you don't have any like weak links anywhere, like you were saying. So I love the example when Dre used, remember when he rehabbed his ACL, right? Was his ACL? I think it was his ACL, right?
it
Which
was,
I'm sure
yeah.
you can see that now. You're like,
Oh,
shit, like,
struck
like
close to
probably
home.
a lot different than what you did in your rehab. Oh man, but yeah, so exactly, it's all about problem solving. I like it a lot. Um, in addition to ISM and all the FRS system stuff, I think you've done animal flow, right? You're big on that. Is there any other movement systems or anything else that you've done, and like, what are your thoughts on those, and do you incorporate them at all?
Yeah. So I started off with the On It Kettlebell Flow certification, um, which I don't believe exists any longer. But my initial interest was in kettlebells. And so I still use kettlebells more as a conditioning piece. And
Yeah.
I think they're super powerful. The velocity behind a kettlebell is highly underrated, I think. And it's a really cool tool. And animal flow as well. Beyond that, I've been recently exposed to the PRI world, the Postural Restoration Institute, and I'm not certified, but I work with Dr. Loke with a
Oh yeah.
client of mine. So my client will go see him every 6 to 8 weeks, and I sit in on the session. He gives us implementable tools, and then we take it back, we work on them, and then we bring them back for an
Are you
update.
on online
And
or what?
yep, all online. So we'll
I
just
was about to
run
say
the
you're
Zoom.
coming out here. It looks right up the street for
No,
me. Yeah.
no, yeah, we'll just run the Zoom call
Yeah.
in office, and it works super well. But so I mean, I'm pretty much solely in the FRS world. I mean, I did the ACE personal training certification, but the primary understanding of the body and movement for me is through that FRS lens.
So let's step back for a second because Dr. Loke he knows his shit. to like to get to sit in with somebody like that who I mean Dr. Loke's not well known. He works in person. He's like, he's old school like a lot of us. Like we're making our money one to one. Dr. Loke is a really great therapist up in Pasadena, and he's got all the FRC credentials. He's one of the he helps us with the PRI practicals. He helps run that. He really has a good understanding. He also has a lot of interdisciplinary connects, which maybe you've had to use for some of yours. Like if you have someone who's got some problems that you just can't seem to solve, you send them to him. It's like FRC can handle a lot, but we can't fix someone's eye that's weird and like, or if they're chewing something weird, like it's hard for us to address that. So he's really good at getting someone who can find the missing piece so we can do our job better. So he's a great asset to
Exactly.
have. Yeah, and you can see it's pretty crazy, right? Like you talked about some of the PRI stuff we've seen him do, where it's like, holy shit, like was that magic? Is this weird? Like what is going on? And it's not that it's the be all end all, but for some people it kind of is if you really need it.
Yeah, the one thing that really took me back, that took me a second to wrap my head around, but it made sense, was cranial torsion. Like the idea that like if your eyes are crooked, you perceive the world twisted essentially,
Yeah.
right? And it causes downstream effects. So that was pretty crazy. And but I will say you can even take that FRS lens to the movements that we do with him and with PRI, because it's that repetitive loading quality, right?
Yeah.
Those movements don't work if you only do them once. They work if you're doing them every day, maybe multiple times a day. Maybe the intensity isn't as high, but the loading of the tissue, is there. And so I can even see some of the correlations
Oh yeah,
between.
they bleed over a lot. You see Dr. Lope, he'll post on one of his things and he'll be like, mostly PR, and then like he'll be like, this is an FRC component I'm doing for this. And I do a lot. Like uh I think that PRI is really good in a sense to give us a better like axial skeletal base to work on top of if it's needed. If someone's got a lot of issues, I like to kind of do some of the PRI stuff first so that I have more space available to like work with, more tissues available. But conversely, I use a lot of FRC stuff with PRIs. Like one of our big things in PRI is we got to get like this right intercostal to loosen up a little bit. This right rib is usually like so depressed. So I'll do pels rails for that, or I'll do pels rails for like a tight rectus abdominis, where that's something they don't really touch. So there is every good system is going to bleed over, and there's not like really, it's not a system that's going to say I'm going to do everything. Like I said, like I don't think there's really anything missing. I don't think there's anything wrong with FRC per se, because it's not trying to do absolutely everything, and it's so manageable to tailor to like whatever you need. It's kind of like you can't really expect one thing to increase, to just improve every aspect of somebody's limitations. Like so for example, I would say like maybe one potential thing that I think FRC practitioners should really take into account, like we talked about, I said earlier, is the axial skeleton position, right? So a lot of times if we're looking at different ranges of motion, it could be, skewed because, I'm sure as working with Dr. Loke, you've seen a lot of that, right? Like sometimes something's doesn't have range of motion because there's like a bony block and you're not going to push through that. You know what I mean? You have to get something to reposition, usually by learning how to breathe, which I know FRC, they do touch that. And I did FRC before I was really into PRI. So I kind of like overlooked the breathing stuff. But that I think is super key. And I think that's one thing maybe we could emphasize a little bit more on, but the ability to expand from the inside out, to get these ribs to open, to actually have a better ability to like internally rotate. Maybe we need posterior expansion on the backside. Maybe that's what's limiting our shoulder flexion. Is not the progressive tissues. And so you can go against that wall like as hard as you want, but you're not going to make a real change. What's going to happen is you're going to orient yourself there where it's going to look like you got more. And these are things that high level practitioners like you and everyone, you guys are thinking and intuitive enough, and these things. You can feel it. When am I going past what am I intending, or do I want to go global right now? Sometimes you want to or need to. So I mean, it just gets so fine into the details, and I love it because we can just get so deep as we want. But I definitely think there's a lot of value to knowing something like PRI, or something like I took Connor Harris's course, which was cool. It's over like a biomechanics. That's actually a really good one for someone like that's not looking to go so deep, because PRI is pretty heavy. Something like Connor's course is like kind of like more for the masses, more for accessible for most trainers. It was really cool. I'm interviewing Zach Couples in a week, next week, 2 weeks, and he's another guy that has a lot of these expansion, compression kind of theories. And then I don't know if you're familiar with Bill Hartmann. Have you ever heard of Bill Hartmann?
I haven't.
So Bill he's the man. He's the man behind them, all the guys. Like he started in PRI like 20 years ago. And then he kind of branched off and did a little bit more, but he actually mentored Zach and Connor as well. And everything they do kind of spawns from him. And he is such a humble, like doesn't want any attention kind of guy. He's got like 5,000 followers on Instagram, where Connor Harris has like 300,000, and he's saying the same information, and he's good. Connor's good, but this is the guy who came up with everything. And he actually offers his online course for free. You have to apply. He wants to make sure that people are serious, but he does it for free. And you can do it. He does 15-minute consults on the phone. You can call him. He puts them up on video, and he covers all these cool concepts that are so in depth and that could really help with anyone looking to FRC. So I'll try to link that at the bottom if anyone's interested. It's Bill Hartmann's human performance model, and totally free. They do weekly calls at like 6 a.m. 2 days a week, and you can jump on. And this guy's he's like, he just wants to get back to the industry, the most humble guy in the world. And it's really cool stuff. So I'll put that there. I really recommend that for anybody. It's got a little sidetrack, but I just think that's so cool that, because I spent thousands of dollars, on all these education, and this guy is the guy, and he's just giving out there. He just wants to help everybody. Really cool stuff.
Yeah, sounds like a really cool resource. I'll check it out as well. That's sweet. How is I'm curious, I originally, and probably any trainer who's been training for over 5 years before the online space was really a thing for trainers, everyone wants a gym, right? That's the pinnacle of being a personal trainer, is working up through the ranks and eventually stepping out and putting your name out there and your name on the building. How has that process been? And let me behind the curtain, because it was a dream for a long time of mine and didn't pursue it. So I'm curious.
All right, we can get into this. So yeah, I opened my gym in 2022, and it was with a client of mine who I've been training for a long time, trained the whole family. It's kind of one of those things. It's like, okay, I'm spending, because I kind of looked at it, goes, I think I'm spending $86,000 a year. So let's figure out a way to like at least make sure I'm not losing money. Like, and so he let me put together the best gym I could ever think of. I guess I don't like to talk about myself on this stuff, but a quick background real fast. So my background's more in the corporate side of things. I was a trainer in the gym, but then I became like the fitness manager, and then I became the director of education for Gold's Gyms. And I was really training the trainers. And then I really missed training. So went back to training, went independent, and then I left. So I have like this background kind of in the corporate world and how to run a gym. So the whole thing was give it to me, let me run with it and build it. And I mean, long story short, it's like you have to always, look at someone's past and don't think that you're an exception, even if you're close. So we don't want to get too deep into it, but basically, we had a contract written up, and my client he said, I'm not gonna honor that contract. He said, he decided to basically said, if you take this to court, you're gonna fight for a gym that has no equity. He's like, the business model had changed for him. He kind of wanted it to not make money essentially for his other business purposes. So I was like, I'm not, he was trying to make changes. Like, I'm not down with this. So I had to leave my gym that I built and brought everyone over. It brought over, $300,000 from my clients. And I just left it because there was nothing to really fight for. So that was a really tough learning experience, a lot of stress. I mean, I ended up like, I'm doing way better financially. I don't have all the stressors, but like you said, that was a dream. That's something I really wanted forever. And it's like, I had seen in the past, this guy had a lot of issues with his business partners. He had been sued a couple of times, and I'm like, he did talk to his brother. I'm like, okay, but we're close. I lifted your daughter up in her bar mitzvah. So it's just, I've learned, when you do business, probably don't get involved with someone you're close with. I would say. So I know it's a little bit of a bummer, but I learned a lot, and now when I do it on my own, it's like I have so much better knowledge in my head on how to run things. So. Yeah,
So
not the fun.
are you still in that same space, or are you?
I'm right across the street. Yeah,
Okay.
so one of my buddies I've known forever, he's got a gym right here. So I just, pulled my people right there, So
Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
so
Well, sorry to hear. And it sucks that sometimes those lessons and experiences have such a high cost and a mental toll, but looks like and sounds like, made it through the other side, and here we
yeah,
are,
it's like you always know, like at a certain age, when to bet on yourself. You've proven it to yourself enough times. It's like, okay, it'll work out. I'll be all good. But it was pretty cool. The reason I wanted the gym and what I want to do and why I'm kind of transitioning to online a little bit is I liked helping the trainers. When I was director of education, like I liked helping trainers become better trainers and make better money and to help people more. So like that's what I kind of miss. And eventually we'll get there. But I'm trying to move a little bit on the online community because I can end up reaching a little bit more that way.
Awesome. That's really cool. I think we had kind of talked about kinstretch and how scalable it is. And I think one cool thing maybe we could touch on is the idea of progressive overload or progressive programming within the kinstretch model.
Yeah.
If you're good with that, I think that where people miss the boat sometimes on kinstretch, FRC in general, but we're specifically talking about kinstretch, is that tails and rails should change on how, for example, how high you lift off the ground on your rails contraction. Where you should always be at your end range, and you should always be at maximum intensity as long as there's no pain there, right? And I think that makes it infinitely scalable for all people, where my position and your position might look different, but as long as we're both at our end range, it's still the end range. And as long as we're both driving maximum intensity, we might have different force outputs, but maximum for me is the same as maximum for you in terms of a signal and a tissue change perspective. And so I think that as long as the coach understands that, guides in positioning, and can walk people through what level they should land at, it's infinitely scalable for intensity and progress.
Do you give any cues at all on how to like generate that intensity internally?
Yeah, a bunch of different ways. You know, sometimes I'll use tactile feedback, like if I'm doing thoracic segmentation, upper spine segmentation, I'll give a band around the back and I'll cue feeling the band running across your legs and your core. And I want to fire in the belly. Number one focus is bracing core, keeping internal intensity and fire there. And then the leftover energy goes to segmenting the spine. That might be one way I'll give it, and we go a bunch of different ways.
I think the spine segmentation is one of the most crucial like parts of FRC too, because doing that, it kind of bleeds into a lot of the other stuff that I do as well. It gets into your rib function. We don't FRC, we don't really talk about ribs directly, but the spinal segmentation, a lot of that helps with that those dysfunctions a lot of people have of like the overflared ribs and just being stuck in extension and moving like just in segments. I think this like, do you do a lot of heavy loaded spine flexion right now?
Generally, it depends who you ask about heavy, but maybe like 155 pounds, I'll do set of 5, set of 7 Jefferson curls.
Like a Jefferson like straight leg, like a
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Oh, okay, okay,
straight leg and a Zecher hold, typically
yeah.
like in the crease of the elbow, so I can get full range. That's about as much as feels safe for me, and I feel comfortable. And then I like really heavy loaded spine cars as well.
Yeah,
50,
I like
75 pound medicine balls if I can find them. If the gym has them, I'm
yeah.
looking for the biggest one. Let's go.
Uh,
I think it's a really cool exercise. I
you
don't
ever,
know.
you
I
ever do
love
that
it.
with the belt squat? The heavy cars with the belt squat on
I
you?
haven't. I've never had access to a belt squat, so
Uh,
I haven't
that's
had the opportunity
intense.
to, but I've
Yeah,
seen
obviously,
it.
because it locks you in. Yeah, that makes it really tough. I know Quint, he had shown me that. He's a big fan of it. Let's kind of dip in back into the ISM. Like,
Okay, cool.
do you feel like what do you feel like is the most underused aspect of the ISM model? Because everyone goes pels rels, everyone likes the continuous tension, but it's like, what about in between?
Yeah, definitely. I think the fast twitch not to failure and slingshot, like connective tissue absorption like at speed, I think are probably the two least utilized that I see. Now, I'm not in a gym where I'm around a bunch of other FRS practitioners, so I'm making a blanket statement based on what I see via social media
Online.
and
Yeah.
Instagram, right? So that's kind of where I'm pulling that from. Josh, Curated Mobility, does a really good job of some of those less used from a physiotherapy aspect. Josh Chung, and
Great, great, great
he's an
IG.
all yeah, great IG to follow, and just great resource, especially from the therapy side of things. And I would say in general, I think the ISM should be heavily utilized by physical therapists. I
Oh
would
yeah.
say this is I work with a lot of chronic injuries that are like undiagnosed, or maybe it's an old injury that they've seen a physical therapist with, but they haven't made any progress, or they make the initial 6 week progress where your body kind of does most of that healing anyways, and then no more progress for 6 months. And so that seems to be a lot of like where my clientele ended up being. So I work with a lot of chronic pain in that sense, I guess. And the connective tissue loading for some of that getting out of pain. I'm not a physical therapist, so it's not rehab, but like, that style of training is so beneficial, and I see massive improvement so quickly. And so I would say generally physical therapists should be taking that ISM training and implementing in droves because it's so effective for those soft tissue injuries.
And it's really, I mean, it's like everything in physical therapy. That's what actually I started. My background was kind of more physical therapy, but it's like everything that we apply in physical therapy, it gets extrapolated and into athletics, just progressive, right? So it's like that's why, like you said, I love that. I said we could do it from the moment you get your surgery to the moment you're, performing at the best on the field. So really cool. I think that for me, I think negatives, just normal slow negatives are like so underutilized, at least in the bodybuilding world. It's such a low hanging fruit, and a lot of the issues, something like we talked about, sometimes it's like, do I need to pels rails? It's like, okay, did I have that access to it like real recently? If I had it real recently, like, and maybe it's just like a soft tissue thing, and you can do a couple of things like, oh, okay, I got it back. And you can literally like when I try to tell my clients, if I have one that's like online or something, I go like, just feel your tissue, right? They talk about that link tension test. And like if it's, getting super short and like way quick, do follow that line of tension on the negative. And then like, I can feel way better. And like you can get those bigger range of motion, you can get better tissues in there. So I think just easy negatives. And I like the in-range ISO ramping too. I think that's super, like I think people look at the fancy stuff. I love the slingshots too. That's fancy, but that is underutilized. I know curated mobility. He does a lot of this stuff on the slingshot. I like or what's the like the one where you do the pulsing. What is that called? I'm going blank.
Yeah, like rebound catches.
Yeah.
And really at
No,
least
not the rebound catch. Like if you're dropping, like say you have like a band associated and you're going to drop and you're holding the perturbations of the catching that.
yeah, so I'm drawing a blank on the name as well, but essentially it's a partner exercise where you're going to hold a certain position and the tension's going to be taken off and then applied back on.
Yeah.
That's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, like I do a lot of I would get like a band, right, and just weight it, and I'd have them like maybe in a standing sleeper, and then they're catching it, at the bottom, trying to stay in that range. But yeah, just the normal slingshots and the rebounds are really good, especially for the rebound, especially for potentiation. Do you do anything in particular for PAP? Is that something you incorporate in your programming, like when you're doing your
You
big
know,
lifts? I mean, it happens
I would
somewhat automatic.
I would say no. I don't do much, honestly.
Well, just the capsular activity, that I mean, it happens just from the prep work to a pretty big degree. I think if you're doing, high level pels rails on your joint before you start, I think if you're doing like any kind of like somewhat of something, maybe not something to link, but like a ballistic ISO, like you said, something
Yeah,
that
and that's something I really love for clients, especially when they're kind of later in their phase of function, especially in shoulder abduction, shoulder external
so how
rotation.
would you show that with shoulder abduction? Or you're saying abduction, shoulder abduction?
Yeah,
So
shoulder
how would you show?
abduction. Yes, so I'm gonna go long arm, and I'm gonna be on the ground, so on my stomach, or and I'm gonna roll pushing through my non-working hand, and I'm gonna load this into maximum horizontal abduction, and then I'm gonna go from relaxed to maximum pressure into the ground back to relaxed as quickly as possible. I think the key with that is not shorting yourself on that 100% though.
Yeah.
Like people are like, well, it's got to be fast. And so it turns on and off. I'm like, yeah, you were at 60%. It's not the intent and what we're looking for. So knowing when and where to apply that, I'm looking at that for somebody. So like I had a client who's he's got a relocated bicep tendon in his shoulder, separated AC joint. But he's moving super well. The shoulder's looking awesome. And he wanted to go surfing. So ballistic isometrics for him were amazing because that's the contact of when you enter the water and initially start to pull against the force of the water, right? It goes from relaxed to maximum force immediately. So that would be like a real world example of taking somebody from like a shoulder weakness perspective into like sport.
Let me ask you this. It's pretty nuanced, but maybe you've experienced it. So it's like, we're all kind of different in our capabilities, right? Some of us are better at producing force, some of us are better at, absorbing force, kind of like external rotation versus internal rotation, right? So when we're doing these ballistic isometrics, have you noticed that there are some people who get that turn on like instantly, like right away to 100%, where the others it's not quite as smooth. It's like a little bit just delayed just a little bit because they don't have that ability to internally generate that force quite as fast.
Yeah. To me, and this is totally anecdotal, but it seems to be the more high strung, high-paced individuals who are just quick to it. They seem to have that like hypersensitive nervous system
Yeah,
or
there's
something,
definitely a
or in
nervous
that
system component to it
sympathetic,
as well.
just like
Yeah.
ticking high all the time. And they seem to grasp that really well, where they don't do a good job of scanning a 2-minute stretch.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like a power lifter, right? They can turn that on real fast, but they don't really have the best slow twitch ability. When you're doing the ballistic isos, are you going till you lose speed, or are you doing like a certain number of reps?
Typically a certain number of reps, or I feel it tapering off, whichever comes first, right?
Yeah.
I had it drilled pretty hard into my head, and maybe it's a misconception, but the intent is paramount. So if the intent is speed and force, right? Like how fast can I get to maximum force and turn it back off? When I see that suboptimal time frame, I'm done.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
Right. And that kind of spreads across a lot of the ISM model, driving home that intent and focus, which empowers me to know, again, enabling me to make good programming decisions and when to cut clients off of certain movements or certain reps and sets. So again, the ISM just giving me a robust toolkit and feeling confident in navigating a client from like A to B.
I'm wondering, I kind of gave you a couple of my like things that maybe practitioners need to consider, mostly the axial skeleton and things like that. What are some
Right.
of your thoughts that maybe we need to be pretty nuanced about as practitioners or aware
Um,
of?
sure. I guess I'm gonna take it a step back on this. You said, you work with a lot of coaches and maybe newer coaches. And I think knowing when and where to apply which inputs and what style of loading, I would say, and that spans past the FRS model, right? That's just coaching in general. Knowing when and where to use the tools you need. And I feel like I work with a fair amount of new coaches. They like go through the FRS or FRC specifically, and then they are like a fish out of water. They have no clue what to do with the information. And so typically they'll have me write like a 3 to 6 month program. We'll get on calls weekly and kind of talk about the implementation of why I chose which inputs, and I challenge them to challenge me, and
Yeah.
we'll go back and forth, kind of that like mentor mentee relationship for a little while. And the number one question and lack of understanding is when and where, why. So I guess, working with someone like you, it doesn't hurt to hire a coach to get a better understanding of how to apply a system that you're learning. Because I think learning it in a 2-day seminar and going through a 3 to 6 month program that someone writes who's been working in it for years, once you know the program, you're going to learn so much more with the implementation and reasoning behind why you chose each one of the exercises and inputs.
And it is so like you mentioned, it's like there is a lot of discussion even during our courses. It's like, someone might have a question, well, Dre, why didn't we do this input? He goes, oh, that would be good. That could work. That might be better actually. So it's like, we always want to be as optimal as we can. But one of the good things about FRC is it's kind of like it'll get you there more or less, even if you don't pick the absolute best perfect input at that exact moment. You're probably going to be okay as long as you're following the right, progressions.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I would say, I guess now circling back to kind of like what people aren't considering, uh a well-rounded training program. Like unless you're working with a professional athlete, a professional bodybuilder, you need jumping, throwing, pushing, pulling. Like take a step back from the nuanced, cool tools of the rec method and all of these things, and just look at like,
That's what that is,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. And
I
you do
didn't
a lot
realize
of
it.
it, and it's so cool. And flow with AJ. AJ's a friend of mine, and I love the stuff he puts out on that stuff. But like general health, I think, needs to be the platform and basis. I think sometimes we get caught up in all of these nuances, and are you getting 90 minutes of cardiovascular stress a week? Are you doing 3 full like are you hitting every muscle group, or roughly every muscle group, 1 to 3 times per week at a minimum. Like, are you touching on the big buckets before we start kind of funneling down into nuanced training styles, I guess?
Yeah. Yeah, people like, it's easy to get lost in the details. They always want to do broad strokes at first. And one thing you talked about is like being able to implement the system. There's two ways I see trainers kind of fuck this up pretty bad. It's like you do something and you learn it. You think you kind of may have it decent, but you don't really ever apply it or do anything with it. And that, like, I paid for a lot of trainers education, and I'm like, hey, this is really good shit. Like, why am I not seeing you at least like, I'm not saying this has to be your style, but like, aren't you going to implement one component of this? And then you kind of see the opposite sometimes, where somebody maybe doesn't have the comprehension they should, and they're a little too gung ho, and maybe they need to be a little more nuanced about it, or maybe start a little slower and kind of understand their perception, and then how to apply a little bit more for just diving in 100%. I've definitely
Yeah.
seen both of those.
Yeah, I've been guilty of going to a training and completely flipping a client's program on its head, Like
Well, and
I
sometimes it's
definitely.
good. I mean, again, sometimes it's necessary, and depending on the program, like if you take FRC for the first time, the basic FRC, I mean, that's nothing. That's PNF. That's all stuff that's good and easy. You can apply all that right away. But I'm saying something like that maybe needs a little more nuanced thinking. Like I see it a lot. The tent's good, but you're not seeing what you should be seeing.
Yeah, yeah,
And
definitely.
so how much of your clientele is in person?
0.
Okay, so you don't do any in person currently.
Nope.
And do you like that? Do you want a couple in person? Or you like it all online?
I like it. Yeah, I
Yeah.
really like it. I love in-person training, and I love being around people. So I would say, out of everything, I miss is like walking in and out of the gym, slapping fives with the clients I see every week. Like, I miss that. I definitely do. But the freedom my personal life has because of that is incredible. And it's hard to give up. My overhead on my business expenses are like $400 a month, 500
Oh,
bucks a month.
nice. Oh,
You
wow.
know, like, I mean, it's amazing. It depends if you count internet, but I'm going to have internet at my house regardless. So
Yeah.
it's like, I have a couple of softwares that I pay for that really enable me to do my job well. And then it's all online.
How long have you been just online? Just COVID?
Um,
That was a lot of people transitioned during COVID.
Yeah, a little after COVID. So I actually, maybe 2 weeks after COVID hit, I was at a gym in Salt Lake, and we kind of flew under the radar and only turned on half the lights, opened the back door, and we're bringing people
Yeah.
back in the gym probably within 2 weeks after the shutdown.
Yeah.
Um, People could wear masks if they wanted, whatever you're comfortable with. And I don't know if it was the most responsible or not, but people
I mean,
wanted to
it's
train. And
personal. Where I live in
yeah.
Newport Beach was the only place in California where I was able to do that. I would have been starving if I was in
Well,
LA, if I
and
was, I
and
got
that was the
kids.
thing. Yeah, that I don't have kids, but I've got bills, right? And I had quit my other job 3 months before COVID hit to go fully personal training, starting my own business. And the month COVID hit, I had $1,200 come in that month
Yeah.
from training income. Like, that's not a good place to be. And I can't claim unemployment because I quit my job.
Yeah.
So it's like sink or swim.
Yeah.
Am I going to risk it? Well, yeah.
I'm young. I'm good. Like, I wasn't
Yeah.
too big into it, but yeah, I mean, I took probably about a 40 grand hit that year from the year prior, but I was, for most I actually, what? Some trainers had it easy. I had a, depending on what kind of situation you're like, I was independent on my own, right? So I didn't have the
Same.
benefits of like one of my buddies working at Equinox who gets, 60, or I think they 80% of the pay, right? During COVID, he's getting 80% of his paycheck training those clients on the side and doing another job, driving for somebody on the side. So he was making like 3 times as much. And I'm like, man, okay, I don't have that set up, but I'm definitely definitely thankful for where I live, being the only somewhat like in the middle area of California, pretty much.
Yeah, totally. So, yeah. So the way my business, we're all kind of, I don't know, we kind of talked about giving some general framework. And so the way my business works is Instagram's my lead flow. Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok, but primarily Instagram's my
Those are
biggest
the only
platform.
three that you use.
Those are the only three that I use. Yep. And YouTube Shorts, I guess a little bit of Facebook, but nothing
Yeah.
comes in from there.
Is
It's
it mostly
just
IG?
mostly IG. Yeah.
Yeah.
99% IG and
Okay.
referrals,
Yeah.
obviously. But so Instagram's the lead flow, and then they come in, and I've kind of got three different funnels for them to come down. I've got one-on-one training, and that's kind of like the creme de la creme, right? So they pay per session rate, a minimum commitment of 4 sessions per month, no long-term commitment, right?
How do you program that? Is that an app or what are you doing with that?
So I run an invoice for that through Square. So if you want to work once a week with me, it's $480. So you pay for the $120 sessions, 4 sessions at a minimum, and then that comes with custom programming. If you want advice on nutrition, I'll give general, but I'm not giving a meal plan. We can have that dialogue running ongoing, but I'm not doing a custom meal plan. I have resources, and then we go month to month as long as you're happy. And that comes with a 90-minute FRA as well.
Are you using like Google Sheets or using the app for the programming? How do you do your programming?
I use Train Heroic.
Train Heroic, and that is that
Train
just like
Heroic.
is that like Trainerize like all of them? Is that one different somehow? I'm not
It's
super familiar.
it's pretty similar to Trainerize. I would say maybe two differences. I like the interface of Train Heroic better. There is a good coaching side app where I can pretty much manage it through my phone if I need to on the fly, which is nice. I do it all through my computer, but having the option is really key. And they have a subscription model built into the program. So I run a strength program as well, through Train Heroic.
So that's your website, or that your website's separate from the app? Okay, okay. And
Yeah.
so have you ever used Everfit?
I've not been marketed towards it,
Okay.
but I've never used it.
That's the one I use currently. I'm not like I don't use a bunch of it. I like that
Yeah.
they have some cool. I mean, they have like the on-demand video library. I mean, not the exercise library, but you can do programs and stuff, and they're separate. But I'm always looking to see like what's the best. I didn't love Trainerize. I don't remember. It's been a couple of years since I used it. But I don't
Yeah,
think I like the interface.
I didn't either. It looked kind of old PC to me. Was
Yeah,
was like
exactly. That's
the vibe I got. I didn't like Windows 2000 was the feeling when I used it. I did like how you could do like white label branding. It could be your brand on their phone, which I
yeah.
think is valuable. They see it. It's a trigger for
I
you,
know
but
I know Everfit allows it, but it's like it's a paid thing. You can do that on there too.
sure. And that's not something from Train Heroic, but I'm okay with it. And then
Yeah. For your Train Heroic, is that like you'd pay monthly on that, or is that a year subscription? How'd you do that?
so I was lucky enough. I've built out a lot of platforms. I think this is my seventh online platform that I've built out. I was on Playbook, which is a creator app that does not benefit the trainer at all. So it crushes me to see so much usage of it just because it's terrible for like trainers uh income. It's a volume issue. So you charge $7 or you charge $15 a month. 50% goes to Playbook, 50% goes to you. So you're making $7 a month from a client. So when you look at the numbers, I mean, you have to do so much volume to make that even a reasonable income.
Yeah.
So I didn't
Yeah.
like that. So
Not
I built it out on that. And then Josh, he's a co-founder of Train Heroic. Can't pronounce his last name very well, but like Josh Stotch. But he's a great guy, and he reached out to me and offered to onboard me. Saw me as like a potential influential trainer,
nice.
probably due to the Instagram following
Yeah.
that he wanted my users on their platform. So he onboarded me, uploaded all my YouTube videos within their platform, and I get it for free,
Nice. I want to
which
get
is
into
super cool.
your different revenue streams real quick, but we'll backtrack for a second. On your IG,
Yeah.
how did you build that up so good? When did you start your IG actually?
Yeah, I started when I was still at Orange Theory, so it's been 7 years
Yeah.
that I've been posting every day. And
Yeah.
really that's the key. I mean, quality content, be yourself, be authentic, and consistency has really been the main driver that I can point to. I remember I went to Costa Rica in like 2021, and I left with 5,000 followers. I went for 10 days and I'd scheduled out all of my content. So I'd filmed all the videos, made the captions, and had them kind of like saved as drafts. And each morning I just wake up in Costa Rica and post them. And I was waking up, and every day it was like 5,000 new followers,
Oh,
7,000 new
nice.
followers.
Yeah.
And, I came back with over 35,000 followers in 10 days. So 5 to 35, like that. That was like a really big jump. And then kind of over the next year, kind of like climbed up to like 100. And I've kind of stayed there more or less for like the last year and a half.
Yeah. Yeah. Kind of everything's kind of chills. I worked with a guy who started like I hate social media, man. I hate it. I like my YouTube. My YouTube I get a lot, but I hate IG and stuff. In fact, actually, it's kind of a funny story. Back, so I remember in 2011, I was working as the training manager at Gold's Gym in Fullerton, and people, I didn't really know. I was like, no one gives a shit about what you're doing. I don't want to see pictures of you. Like, what is this Instagram? Like, I had a trainer who was like always on the phone, always doing these things, trying to like become known on there. Like, who cares? Just you're gonna make money in person. You can't like what is this? I'm so like millennial. Like I'm so like I was kind of like stuck in brick and mortar at that moment. So I'm telling this guy, I'm telling you, this is a waste of time. I don't know what you're doing. This internet's like this social media shit's gonna phase out. It's for like little kids. And that guy was Bradley Martin. You familiar with him?
No.
Yeah, so Bradley is probably one of the biggest guys in the fitness bodybuilding industry. He's got like maybe 4 million followers on IG. Like he
You're
is
like, well,
the
well, that was a missed opportunity.
he's the biggest. And it's like I actually fired him. It's a really funny story. He worked for me. He was just like getting kind of social media like famous at one point and ended up firing. But yeah, he's like now he's like so well known. I mean, went to the Arnold Classic and there was a line that was like wrapped around like 15 booths, and I thought they were waiting for like I don't know Mr. Olympia, and I was like, who are you guys waiting for? Like, that's Bradley Martin. I'm like, Brad? What? Yeah, it's funny. So I've really been a late adapter. One of the guys I worked with at my last gym, he was a big movement guy. Kyle Knapp, do you follow him?
I don't know.
You probably would like him. He's really into the movement and stuff. He did a American Ninja Warrior back in the day,
Oh,
and he's same thing. He just posted every day. I remember right when he started, and I was like, I think Instagram's dead. I don't think And then 150,000 followers now. So I think you're right. Consistency is super key. Even though I see the ads saying like you don't post every day. I mean, I get all kinds of ads all the time because I probably have such shitty account numbers. But sorry. So going back,
no, you're fine.
what's that? Did you have some?
Oh, I was just saying, I don't think that necessarily every day is needed. I just think you need to provide outsized value if you want to post less, right? Like, just like in any society, you get rewarded for providing value in a
Do you
macro view,
strategize
right?
like your times and stuff?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I use it's called Metricool. It's a scheduling app. So I kind of batch all my content. So I just filmed for the next week today, and I edit, upload, and then they post at the hot time. So this app kind of
Does it change? Like,
highlights. Yeah, it's roughly in the morning, like in between 6:30 and 8 tends to be like the best time, and then it has time to be posted all day and have interaction. And then if it does really well, it will catch like all of the UK time zones,
yeah,
and then kind of like resurge. Um, but I think it really all comes back to like providing value and really thinking about it from an experiential perspective, right?
yeah.
Like how is your lighting? How is my experience consuming your content? And it really comes down to you're more of a creator than a trainer, even though it's so frustrating because I'm a trainer first.
Yeah.
Like I'm not an influencer. I make 100% of my revenue or 99% of my revenue from one-on-one training
Yeah.
and subscriptions. So it's frustrating, but it's necessary for me.
Yeah, and it's different, right? Like you've got a lot of followers. I'm sure you get a lot of, you probably get a lot of inquiries too that you never hear back from too. People just, reaching out just because you're so out there. Where it's like, me, like I said, I don't really give a shit. Like my IG is shitty, but I am putting a little more effort in now. And it's like, sometimes people can cultivate like that super loyal, even though they might only have like 5,000, but they've got 2,000 of those on every single thing they're doing, ready to just jump in on whatever they want to do. So some people get discouraged if they don't have the biggest following, but it's like I have people hit me up all the time online. I don't do anything. I'm sure I would get more if I tried more, but my bread and butter is in person. But like I said, the content is what matters because people will grab onto that, whether it's, you just need that loyal. You've ever heard like the 1,000 true fans, right?
No.
It's a concept that basically like
Yeah.
if you have 1,000 people that like will follow you wherever you go, they believe in you, you're set for life, basically.
Well, and it's, an even more niche down or smaller example of that is like, I only have 25, 30 one-on-one training slots a week.
Yeah, exactly.
That's not that many clients in the grand scheme of things. So even 1,000 followers, if you're providing immense value to them and positioning yourself well to help them, you could have a full book with 1,000 followers fully online. And I know coaches who, are under 10,000 followers who run a fully online business who make over 10K a month.
Yeah. Now, there's some great
And so
FRC
it's doable.
practitioners, some great FRC practitioners out there that don't have a huge following, but people search them for that, and that's how they make their living. Now, I'll try to
For
link some
sure.
really good FRC accounts at the bottom because there's some cool ones out there that don't get that much attention for sure. So, with your revenue stream, so you have the one-on-one. Are you like live while they're training?
Oh yeah. Yep.
Okay,
So
okay, so
Zoom,
you're cute.
Zoom call just like this. So right on the other side of me over here, I've got like an 8x8 wrestling mat, and I set up my camera and I'm coaching them through,
Right.
stand up, pull your knee up into your chest. Okay. Grab onto your shin, pull a little more, take a deep breath, try and hold it, slowly let go of the knee. 5, 4, 3, right? I just rip it just like I'm in person. I would say the hurdles are, some people aren't comfortable bringing their phone into the gym, but I've probably 8, 9 clients who bring me into Vasa on a
Yeah.
tripod, and I coach them right there. I have other clients who build out home gyms to work with me, or people who are earlier in kind of like the return to life phases, and we don't even need weights. Like
Yeah.
we're rolling, we get a set of bands and we're good for probably like the next 2 to 3 months. So my revenue stream, so I do one-on-one training. That's kind of like my bread and butter. And then I have a strength membership. It's called the MBM Strength and Performance. And that's what I follow. That's the 2 weeks on
Okay.
muscle, 2 weeks on connective tissue. I do the program. I essentially write it for,
So
your,
important. So many people write shit they would never do. I hate that.
yeah, it's necessary, right? To make
Yeah.
sure what I'm writing, it's the right time duration. It flows, it feels good. And so I do that along with people who subscribe to that. And that's through Train Heroic as well, which is really nice because I might have specific workouts that 90% of that works really well for one of my clients. And I can just pull it over, boom, and it's efficient, super efficient. So I have the strength and performance, and then I have the kinstretch membership as well. So right now I've got 110 full length kinstretch class. Well, 10 minutes to 50 minutes is kind of the length I do from all the feedback I've heard from my user base. 20 to 30 is like their bread and butter. They're not going to do more
Yeah.
than that. Where some people like the 60 to 80-minute kinstretch class, that doesn't seem to be the demand for me. So
Yeah.
I just cater to what people are asking for. And within that program, it's got, a 12-week spine program, a 12-week hip program, a 12-week shoulder and scapula program, a 12-week knee and ankle program. So a lot of stuff in there. And so that's how my revenue funnels in. So one-on-one probably makes up about 70%, 65, 70%. Then the 2 memberships make up the other 30. And I
Is
have
your
some,
website, or the website, is that like is that just the platform on the desktop version?
yeah. So I have, and this is one thing that bothers me, and I'm always in the process of evolving it, but I have a website, mvmtbymatt.com. Then
That's
I
totally
have my
separate?
and then I have my kinstretch platform, which is hosted through Vimeo OTT, and that's its own web page. But if you click on the kinstretch on my website, it just kind of like redirects you. And then the strength program is through Train Heroic. So I kind of have like 3 different funnels,
Okay.
which isn't the most efficient, and it's on my to-dos. But
Okay. Just curious.
yeah, the kinstretch is built on a platform called Vimeo OTT, and they get $1 for every user. So
And so what is
that's
that? As
how.
like a monthly subscription too for them?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's a monthly subscription. So the kinstretch is 60 a month. The strength program's 43 a month. So my website does nothing. My website's just a funnel.
Oh,
Movementbymatt.com
okay.
is just a funnel where you can find the kinstretch,
Oh, so can you
the
join?
one
Because
on.
I was just messing around. I saw for a second, like you have to join it, and then you get okay, you get all that. I'm so clueless with all this shit. So that's just to
No,
get them to
I
your
I
stuff.
don't. Yeah. So essentially, movementbymatt.com is my landing page. and
Gotcha.
then there's a kinstretch link that you'd click on that takes you to Vimeo. There's a
Gotcha.
strength link that takes you to Train Heroic, or there's a one-on-one application that takes you to Calendly to book an appointment with.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense. Do you have
Yep.
anybody who does two different ones or multiple ones?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I feel a
Yeah.
lot of people might, double dip. So you have more. Do you think you have more people involved on the strength ones because that's on the app versus the kinstretch, or is kinstretch more popular for you?
No, kinstretch, I've got like 4 times the users
Yeah,
that the
yeah,
strength program does. I'm not known for strength training. Like that's not really, I'm known as a mobility guy, I
yeah,
think, on the internet more so. And I will say people were really interested before the ISM came out. My idea and approach to fusing mobility and strength, that seemed to be what garnered me a lot of the interest and followership. So I expected the strength and performance program. Essentially, that's what it is, now kind of molded into the ISM. I thought it would be more popular.
yeah.
It's not super popular.
Yeah.
Um, I think I have maybe 17 or 18 users. Uh, but it brings in an extra $700 a month, and I'm writing my program.
Yeah,
So
you're not doing anything extra, right? When you
yeah,
do
exactly.
when you do your filming, is that mostly your own workouts, or do you have to do a lot of dedicated time to filming other stuff?
I would say I get inspiration through my workouts and my kin stretch classes. So I'll take bits and pieces of my strength program and film it and make it like, here's 3 exercises to improve hip flexion. And it's just a snippet of my strength program. I pulled 3 exercises that are all to do with hip flexion, or I will create a really cool sequence in my kin stretch class, and then I'll break them up into individual movements and kind of show how it links together, kind of giving you an experience of what a kin stretch class would potentially look like. And so that's how I get to a lot of my content. Not much of it is purely made up to film.
Yeah. Do you edit it yourself and everything?
I do everything. Yeah. So I film on a Sony A7 III and then I upload to Final Cut Pro, do light adjustments, cut it
You like
down,
it?
speed it up.
You like
No.
that part? Okay. Some people do. I
Abs-
find that.
Absolutely not. I'm really I if I could do online training without running social media, good riddance.
Yeah.
I would love to, but unfortunately, like it's necessary and needed, and I'm okay with that. That's how all jobs are and how all things in life are. And
Well, you're very
I would have
authentic. It's not like you're doing bullshit. You know what I'm saying? Like when
thanks.
you have to like present anything other than just who you are. So I think that's
Yeah,
really important.
and it's a constant battle though, because I do see what I portray as who I am, and I'm constantly checking myself and ensuring like I'm sharing the things that are true to me and inspire me and are real to me and not what I think you or them want to see.
Yeah.
So really like checking in with myself often is important because I don't want to lose myself in trying to or like feeling the pressure of holding myself up to the expectations I create publicly privately.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of people your age too are kind of where you're at with your mindset and your business. I mean, you've been totally online for a few years now. You said you just turned 28, right? Didn't you just have a birthday pretty recently?
Yeah, yep, just turned 28.
Oh yeah, I feel like I saw some
Yeah.
posts. So
Yep.
I don't know. Does that make you a millennial? You might be like the last millennial year, huh?
I'm the last year. Yeah, my friends like to
Yeah.
argue about it, but I'm the last year of a millennial and
I
I
could,
I
I think of the 80s, but yeah, you're part Zoomer, right? Part Zoomer. You're
it
definitely better
says
with technology.
96 on the internet, so I'm
Yeah.
rolling with that's my birth year. But I grew up with 2 older brothers, and I was best friends with my oldest brother, who's 6 years older than me. And snowboarding, I was better than the kids my age, so I hung out with people older than me, and always dated girls older than me. And so I just feel a little bit older than I am. So I definitely identify more kind of with like that age group of people compared to like a Gen Z
Yeah.
mindset.
I almost feel like the end of millennials and the beginning of Gen Z bottled together better than like where they have it set up because it's kind of like someone like you're kind of far enough almost removed from like a millennial born in the 80s where like our parents, were like the boomers, and everything was rosy. They had the perfect situation. They had the house, and had the job and everything by the time they were 25. And so a lot of like millennials, like I'm born in 87, a lot of the older ones like me, like I see so much bitterness almost, and like pent up like frustration, like you deserve this. Like, I mean, I know it's harder to buy a house now, but I would take that trade to have the freedom that we have and to be able to like have our own path to follow. And then I see someone like you and some of your age group, you guys seem to be like a little less like complaining. I mean, there is still a lot, but I definitely see a lot more hustle with kind of the younger, like your age and younger, to create your own path, and to like you're kind of further removed, so you're not as affected. You don't like, I grew up, I went to school for a finance degree. I was going to go do the typical shit, and had the structure. There was a layout, but you already kind of saw that shit didn't work as you're coming up. Like I would have done stuff a lot differently. I'm really glad they happened the way they did, but I think it's pretty admirable to see these young guys and girls who don't kind of fall into the trap of saying, "Oh, woe is me. Like I can't just go to college and get a degree in anything and then go buy a house and live happily ever after." Because
Mhm.
it's so much better to actually create your own dream, and to chase after it. And I think that's something that is a lot more present with the newer generation. But like there's a gap of people like my age where it's just like they don't know what the fuck to do with themselves, and they're just miserable. And I think one of the things you did that was really cool is when you were off in your van for what, like a year? How long? Or 6? How long did you do that
Yeah,
for?
yeah, 4. I built it out for 9 months and lived in it for 4 months.
Wow, that was pretty cool. Was that so? Was that something you had planned on doing for a while? Did that just come out of nowhere? Like what brought that on? That was
Yeah.
really
No,
cool.
no, so I love working with my hands. I really enjoy the process of building. When I was young, I'd build skateboard ramps. I used to take apart bikes and put them together like mismatch Frankenstein. Um, and I had lived in a bus with my ex-girlfriend, and we had traveled around for about 4 months, and it was a really cool experience. I enjoyed living on the road, but it was challenging with another person because it was decision fatigue all of the time. Hey, are you okay with leaving tomorrow because I have this call this evening? What do you think about stopping here for gas instead of there? And just every decision of life had to be made as a partnership, more so than like living together in a house. And
And was she just
that
working
was,
like a normal work from home job? Was she in the
yeah,
fitness industry too?
no, she was
Like a nine to
like a
five at home?
marketing. Yeah, she was
Okay.
in like channel marketing, really good at her job, which was cool. She was good at it and passionate, and that was awesome, which also provided a little bit of stability for me to
Yeah.
kind of branch out.
I was
And
gonna
that
say
was
that's
when
that's important.
that was when I went fully online. So I was in-person training, doing really well. I was really happy. And when I switched to online, we had moved into the bus, and my income cut into over half or less than half to make that transition into the bus.
Yeah.
But so it's nice that she was good at her job, and it was a little bit of feeling of safety. But we did that. We split, and I wanted to see what it was like on my own. Like I really liked it. I had a good time, but I wanted that full freedom, and I got it. It was amazing. I still trained full time. I brought around a wrestling mat in the back of the van, and I
Yeah, I
busted
remember that.
out. I did all my
Where all did you
content,
go?
and pretty much the whole West Coast, like twice. British Columbia, uh, down to Southern Colorado and back up. So like Washington, Oregon, British Columbia, Utah, Colorado, California was kind of like
And what do you
my
do? Are you like mountain biking and stuff, or like
yeah, mountain
what all do
biking,
you?
working out a ton. I mean, it was interesting. You don't have any friends on the road. It's pretty lonely. I spent a ton of time alone. It was the first time in my life where I enjoyed my own headspace. Not that
Yeah,
like I hated myself or didn't enjoy my headspace, but I always was liking to bounce person to person, client to
yeah,
client, like stimulus, stimulus, stimulus. And here I was like forced to really get comfortable with myself. And I think it was super valuable.
yeah. No, that looks so cool. Did you like what was there any like one experience that like really stood out as far as like being memorable or like scary or anything? Like what's one thing that you can recount from those 4 months that you'll remember?
I met cool people, just like the forced random interaction. I mean, you're so alone that you want that human interaction, and so you're gonna go out on a limb to interact with people. Just that skill and practice was super valuable. And the trip with my mom, I took my mom up to British Columbia for 2 weeks, and that was awesome. So, we both were in the van, and she mountain bikes and paddleboards. She's 65, which
Nice.
is super cool. Like
You
she's at
train
the
her?
Whistler. She's at the Whistler bike park. She actually
Oh,
just
nice.
snapped a band this week. I just sent her a new set of bands. So she's crushing it.
Nice.
But yeah, that was probably the most memorable 2 weeks in the van. It was really special and fun.
Have you seen a lot of like international stuff, or it seems like you've seen a lot of domestic?
As far as traveling,
Yeah. Where have you been?
I've
You said you went to Costa Rica. That's beautiful. I really want to go there.
yeah, Costa Rica, Mexico, Portugal, and Spain, and the Philippines have been my
Philippines is far, right?
yeah, very far. That was
That's
where
cool.
that was where I decided to quit my job and start my own business.
What was
That
that
was the
trip?
catalyst. It was 2 weeks. We went to the Palawan Islands
Oh, it's
in
beautiful.
the Philippines, and I don't know, something about it. It was my first like big abroad trip, and meeting the people who were running their own business and able to be there, and just seeing the freedom and ownership that they had over their life.
Right.
It was just the wake up call that it was time and necessary.
That's awesome. What are
Yeah.
your future plans as far as your business? Do you have any ideas on expansion, improving any revenue streams? Where are you trying to go from here?
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I'm on a really focused path right now to grow my kinstretch platform. I think it's the best one to many solution as far as mobility training goes. And so
And how
I'm
much is that? How
looking
does that work
to.
again? That how much is that? That one's monthly from your
Yep. Yeah, it's $60 a month. I run specials here and there, 20% off here and there. So you can wait for one of those. But uh yeah, you subscribe 20 or $60 a month, and then I put up a minimum of 4 videos a month, but like this month I'm gonna put up 15, and I'm just pumping content in there.
and you
And
said there's like a library already in there too of stuff?
yeah, 110 full classes, and you go in there and it's separated a bunch of different ways depending on how you like to filter. So there's separations like 10 and 20-minute classes, 20 to 30 minutes. So time duration, there's by body part. So if you're focused on a specific joint you want to
That's
work
cool.
on, and then there's a bunch of pre-made programs in there. So a 12-week scaled program. So it starts you off assuming that it's your first kinstretch class ever, and so you can take, and then it builds on itself. So a 12-week program for every hip or every joint in the body, and then 3 full body 12-week programs. So beginning, intermediate, and advanced, depending on really the pace of class. Everyone can do all the classes like we were talking about. It's infinitely scalable for positions, but I speed through some of the tails and rails explanations.
Yeah.
For example, I say max effort, we're going 10 seconds, and we jump right in rather than explaining what
Yeah.
progressive and regressive tissue is and what you
I
should
think
be
I think they
looking
know at
for.
this point. Yeah. At
Exactly.
least
So
tails rails.
yep. So that's how it works, and I'm looking at scaling that. I mean, my personal training's almost maxed out.
You can't
I've
really
got like,
scale, yeah.
yeah, I got like 2 more slots open there. So looking to scale that, and have a goal to break 200,000 in revenue this year. So that's my immediate focus on revenue and business. Personal training can go up to about 10,000 for me, and then it's either I raise my price or I start working overtime. And I don't
Get that
really,
passive money. Yeah.
yeah, I don't really want to do either of those. I think I'm charging an adequate amount for my skill
Yeah.
set. I don't think I should ask more than I'm asking. I think it's fair. And yeah, just looking to do that kin stretch.
And you're mainly looking to funnel it through the same funnel systems, or do you have any other ideas on how to pump that up?
No, yeah, I'm definitely, it's on my to-do list of like building up a better funnel, just a better experience website. I think it's a little bit lackluster right now, where it's not a clear direction on somebody who comes in and starts looking at the website. There's not direction on how I can help, and what the best option for you is, right? And I think it's not necessarily about selling it to people, because they either need it or they don't, right? And if they need it, they need it. And you're more there just to provide the service and give them the value they're looking for. And I think that's where some people get it wrong, where they just want to sell, sell, sell. And if you don't want to train, or you don't want this style of training, we're not a good fit. It's not going to work. I don't want to sell to you.
Yeah.
I want
Yeah.
to
Well,
provide value to you, and that's it.
yeah, I mean, pretty much everyone comes to you for an FRC ISM kind of programming, right? And you never have anyone like, I don't want to do any of this shit. Like, I'm
Yeah.
assuming everyone comes to you for that.
Yeah. I do also just have people who come to me looking for help. Just like,
Yeah, but
hey,
they're
I'm
expecting you to implement some of that stuff, I'm sure.
not necessarily. Like, I have some people who
Or,
are just
or you mean just
like,
blind? They don't even know like what you do.
just like, hey, I'm 30 pounds overweight. I'm unhappy. I am not feeling good.
Do you
Help
have a
me.
percentage you would say is like injury, feeling better versus like I just want to look good. I don't care how I feel
85% injury.
Yeah, I figure that'd be pretty high.
Yeah, very high. I would say my other niche that I have a lot of clients come through that is still like injury but more strength is ACL rehabs.
Yeah, you should know now.
Yeah, I've got a ton of clients. I've got one right now. His name's Matt, and just super proud of him and the growth he's done. I mean, he's lost 35 pounds. Him and his wife are both training. He's 9.5, 10 months out of ACL rehab. Single leg box jumping 36 inches, double at 42, 80-pound weighted box jumps at 24 inches. All of his weights are up. He's agile. He's running 10 miles a run, just absolutely crushing it. And just to see him take everything I recommended and implement it, and the results were just like, I mean, that's what you do it for. It's so awesome to see. So ACL is another niche that people come to me for.
Are there any products you've ever thought about doing? Like any like I don't know, ebook or courses? Courses are super big right now, right?
I like the MRR models better, the monthly reoccurring revenue, than a course.
Yeah.
I've built courses. I've built tons. I mean, not tons, but I probably built 10 courses. And it's
I
$100
guess it would
here,
have to be something like very
$100 there.
specific,
It's
like maybe like your
cool.
ACL thing. It would have to be a very specific,
But
thing.
even still, like, imagine a span of an ACL rehab from 2 months to 10 months. Even people moving at the same process are going to need different inputs, because at 3 months, all of a sudden your hip flexors are bothering you, right?
Yeah.
Maybe one of you work on your feet all day and one of you have a desk job. Well, the inputs and the focus of the strength training are going to be different to also combat daily life, right? And so, like, I get in the weeds of the nuances
Yeah.
when
I
I
mean,
get into personal
you would have to
training.
pretty much individualize that one. Yeah. Just one
Yeah,
on one.
so I mean, I would say like cool ebooks I've seen for ACL stuff is like plyometric progressions.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dr. Andy Chin has like some cool like plyometric progressions that he shares. Um, but by and large, I just think trainings, if you can afford it, individual training is far and away
Oh yeah. Nothing compares.
the most direct outcome, right? I mean, dude, if I get 3 hours a week with you compared to 3 hours a week with an app,
Yeah. That's one
you
of the things
know,
that it's one of the things that Arnold said that was real famous back in the day. He said he could go into a gym, he could do like 2 sets. And those 2 sets, he's gonna get more out of that 5 minutes than average person can get out of their 90 minutes they're spending there. Just intensity, ability to direct tension and connect. And definitely true when you have a trainer in there. And for me, I have a hard time imagining how I would do it online. I mean, I'm sure I would. I did during COVID a little bit, but it's like, man, that's really like that's got to be. You really have to develop kind of a different kind of eye, I would think. And I'm assuming you have that. You're telling them all the time, like, hey, let me turn you that way so I can look at you from this angle.
and I train them to be good clients, right?
Yeah,
Just like you do with your in-person clients, but like you train them to be on time, you train them to have water, you train them to be prepared. I train them to do their exercises perpendicular to the camera.
yeah,
Uh, I train them to get really good at verbalizing sensations. Like, texturalize it for me. What does it feel like? Is it dull? Is it achy? Is it throbbing? Uh, is it restrictive? Is it loose? Is it unstable? Like, let's put some words around it. And then I use a ton of like tactile feedback within their environment.
Yeah. Best you can. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah, best. Yeah.
I'm so hands on. It's like,
Well, right. Yeah. Like a max effort shoulder car, I can't climb on top of
yeah.
someone, right? But I can create blocks with a squat
Yeah.
rack and a 40-pound kettlebell, you know, in between the feet, squeezing it, get your adductors involved so it
Yeah.
stabilizes the pelvis, whatever, right? Whatever they have, you got to get creative because some people don't have all the tools, right? So I definitely wine bottles get used, cans of beans get used, you know, it's all in play.
That's awesome. Well, man, I
Yeah.
appreciate it. What do you think? Is there anything else you want to cover? You want to go over? Any questions you think we should do for these guys before we sign
You
off?
know, you know, I don't feel like I have anything else. I feel like we covered everything. I think for new, for new trainers, like being patient, not afraid to being coached, I think is like a huge thing. And even for me, I'm constantly looking to get more knowledge, like love being around Dr. Loken and absorbing any and every information I can. If you don't understand something, ask. Don't act like you understand it. It might be cool in the moment to act like you understand, but it's a disservice to you and your clients in the long run not to get clarity. So I would say anybody who has access to you, if they're not understanding something, ask. And possibly, like if you're really serious about wanting to understand a system, hire a coach who does the system as well for a short duration of time with the intent of them teaching you how to implement.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think the ISM model is really good for anyone to jump into. If you're a trainer, it really kind of invigorated me because I was fucking
Me too.
bored.
Me too.
You look at things like one lens your whole life. And at this point, it's like I'm not huge, but I don't take like crazy drugs. I don't eat like crazy. I'm not going to be able to put on a ton of muscle. So my progression was like so slow, where it's like I started doing the ISM, like, oh shit, I can progress fast because I suck at this. So that was pretty nice, and it can definitely give you a new lens to look at people. And I think that anytime you're learning like new systems and things, like don't feel bad if you feel overwhelmed or if you get a little bit of imposter syndrome. Just definitely because Dunning Kruger is so real in this industry, and you got to make sure you don't let it get to you too much either way. When you think you feel like you don't know anything, you know a lot more. Like think about like if we could go back to the first week we started training, if we had the knowledge we had now, if we talked to ourselves, we'd be like, holy fuck, this guy's like awesome. When I know, like a lot of times I'm going around, I still get a little bit of imposter syndrome every now and then if it's the wrong day and things aren't right. I'm like, shit, like, am I really even good at this? Is this really like what I should do in my career? And
Yes.
then I look back and I think, man, I would have killed to have learned from someone like me back in the day. And
Well,
and then like,
it's so I have my very first client still. Her name's Joey. And so I really get to reflect on that progression. And it's cool because every once in a while she'll reflect it back to me
yeah,
and share how grateful she is and how far we've both come and we've grown together and really gotten to see that progress over time. And uh so that's really cool for me personally, getting like I have someone who had me at both ends of the spectrum,
yeah.
and to see how grateful she is helps reinforce at least I know something.
No, yeah, I love it. Yeah, a lot of my guys have been with me I've been in this area since 2015, and so I've had a lot of mine for like 9 years. And I was
So
decent when
cool.
we started, but now it's like, man, it's like just so much faster, so much more effective to get the effects we're trying to get. But
Mhm.
man, thank you so much. I appreciate it. This was awesome. I really,
Yeah,
like I
thank
said,
you,
I really
Jonathan.
love what you do. I think you have like I said, a great kind of view, outlook on everything. I love that, like I said, you're out experiencing the world. I feel like a lot of people, your age who are online. You got like you go live life. You do a lot of stuff. A lot of people kind of like are in this online world. You're in it just because you have to. I like that.
Well, thanks, Jonathan. I appreciate the conversation and the time, and you consider me to have me on amongst your other prolific guests. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, anytime, sure. We can definitely do a follow up. And yeah, I'm really interested. I might check out your kinstretch stuff. I really want to get a little more in depth with that. That's like the only one I didn't do. I've done a bunch of classes, but I'd like to dive a little deeper and implement some of that. So maybe I'll check that out.
Yeah, I'll give you a free month. I'll hook you up. I'll
Cool.
send you an access. You can play around with it.
Awesome. Cool. All right. Appreciate it, man. Thank you
Yeah,
very much. And if you ever need anything, just reach out to me.
sounds good. Thanks.
All right. Have a good one, buddy.
See ya.